Okay, so another episode of Why Me? It's why did I have the experiences I had? Why did I get fired from a company and not do anything about it, even though I had a right to question their ways? Why did this woman, my wife to be, step in here and start making my life a lot busier? I don't know. And why did I get this next job? When I started looking for a job, which was right after I got fired, because I had to have a job, I had this car to pay for, my El Camino. My mother would not be happy with having to make the payments for that thing. My family had very strict rules about money. In fact, right now, my father has whatever you want to call it, a running bank note, or money he's lent to me. And he charges me interest, and I have to make payments to him. I say I have to. If I don't pay him, he doesn't, send me to court. But it's worse than that. He'll sit there and harass you till it's easier to pay than to listen to him bitch. But everything is always documented. He gets ridiculous at times as to how much he documents. But actually in the other way as well. If I do something for him, he has to take money off for it, when I don't really care about him taking anything off. But anyway. So I guess I saw it in the classifieds. We didn't have the internet, so I wasn't looking it up that way. And this job, from what I can remember, nobody told me about it. I just saw that this place up in Walkersville was looking for a prototype parts person, tool and die person, tool maker, and manager of their machine shop. Sounded halfway decent, so I went up there and got interviewed and got the damn job. You have to, and of course I was happy to get a job. Now at that point I was starting to really get serious about my machine shop, my ag repair shop, and I wanted them to know that, at some point I'm gonna want to strike out on my own. And they said that was fine, just give them notice and all that. Well, this job became a real challenge. I sat back in like a corner, and there was a lathe there, and a mill, and a drill press, and some hand tools, and of course I moved some of my tools in there as well. Then the room opened up, and there was a punch press, a gang drill, and some sanders and things like that for deburring the metal bases. I guess I ought to tell you what they made. They made credit card machines. Again, this is before the internet, and of course everybody, and before credit cards, had the magnetic strip on the back, which is now a chip. So they would build the credit card machines, which of course I hated people who used credit cards back then, because it always took a lot longer than if you had cash. So if I'm standing in line, I hated to see somebody pull out their credit card. But of course, almost always the machine that they pulled out to to run the credit card was one of ours. Security Imprinter was the name of the company. In fact, I created a drawing while I was up there. I called Security is Insanity. Nobody really understands that, of course, how it all developed, because it came from the name of the company, not so much the idea of security is insanity, although that was actually a broader interpretation. So the reason it became a challenge is because there was this girl that worked in the production machine shop, and she felt she should have gotten the job. And it was basically two of her friends that also worked there. So they would gang up on me and do things to me to piss me off and see if, well, in fact, in one case, the guy that was there, he wanted to have a fight with me, and he wanted to take it outside. Fortunately, I'm not much of a fighter, so I avoided that. But I mean, they would even hide my lunch and things like that, so I didn't even know whether I was going to get to eat for the day or not. And then in another room was where all the production people were on a conveyor belt, and they just worked off either side of it and put these machines together. So it was a pretty decent job. It was actually very boring. And I can tell you that when I wanted to do something about the insubordination of the people that I managed, the office would never support me. They just told me I was going to have to learn to deal with it. I will say after about 6 months, they did finally settle down, and things started working smoother. They realized that I wasn't there to, piss them off or anything like that. All I wanted to do was try to help make their lives easier and support them in any way possible. There was one major drawback to this job. There was a lot of time when there was nothing for me to do. It was boring. It was terribly boring. I would go back in the storeroom and exercise. I would go up front and complain that I had nothing to do. And they would tell me, just as long as you're here to do what we need when we need it, that's fine. So that's also when I started creating art and everything else, and I'll have to dig up the drawing. Here, I dug it out. I figured, what the hell. This is the final drawing, and this one I ended up doing in an art class that I took. As you can see down there in the corner, security is insanity. So what that originally meant is working at Security Imprinter was insanity. But if you think about it in a larger terms and all, thinking that you're secure is also insane. So I'm dating my wife-to-be, and my in-laws are kind of wondering what my intentions are. So one night while we're sitting there, this is the dumbest way to propose it that you'll ever hear. They're asking me, what our plans are and all that stuff. I said, well, after we get married, we're going to live in Tawnytown in a duplex that my parents own. One half of it, will be is empty and all, and so we can move in there. That was my proposal. I never had a diamond ring for her. I couldn't afford one. I wasn't like other people that felt like you had to do that kind of stuff. I didn't see it. I felt that she was the woman for me. One, because she showed interest in me. Two, because she was a virgin. I hate to say this, but I don't remember that to be fact. But she'll kill me if she sees this video, I'm sure, for me to even doubt that. Quite honestly, by the end of our marriage, I wondered how much of her interest in me in the beginning was really sincere. I really did, because I just didn't see it. But regardless, at that point, I was sure that this was God's intentions, and he had to have been the one who, brought her to me the way he did. I mean, how would I have noticed her that far away, and why would I'm saying when I was in the dance hall, and why would she have ended up sitting at the very table that I was at? Of course, I found out that her friend convinced her to come here again only because she may get to see me. Because she was apparently there once before and saw me and thought I was hot. So, I don't know. That all came, you might say later. So, I'm really feeling like God is behind all of this. And I'm kind of scrunching myself here. He was behind it. And, why it's turned out how it has now, I'm not sure. But, he meant for it to happen the way it did. Because once something happens, that's the way it was supposed to happen. You can't go back and change things. So we're planning to get married, and now I even want to quit drinking. And so I stopped. I quit, and I'm doing it for her partially. Like when I quit the drugs, I was afraid she might start doing drugs as well, just because she seemed infatuated with me, and I didn't want to be the one responsible for taking her down that road. And I looked at drinking in the same way, that God, didn't intend us to drink. Now, in reality, the Bible doesn't say that. Some of the information I'm getting from some of the churches I'm going to, they, won't even accept you as a member if you're drinking and all. So they were very legalistic. And at that point, I was thinking that's the way things are supposed to be. So I quit drinking, and in fact, I didn't even want drinking at our wedding. Now, that wasn't going to happen, but we finally get to wedding day. My mother makes her wedding dress. It's plain, but it definitely shows her shape. I mean, she she has an hourglass type body, so this dress makes her look really nice. And I have this ugly suit that my father made at the factory. It's strange in that, for me, the pants are extremely baggy, and I felt like the jacket was too large for me. But it did have Da Vinci lining in it, so, or Givenchy lining, which is a big name, maybe still is, heck if I know. I can remember our wedding day. I wasn't excited at all, wasn't nervous, nothing. Now they did say I was white as a ghost. I don't know. And one of the reasons I don't know is because not one picture came out. Her brother's friend, who was a photographer, did our photographing, and he was, and of course remember, this is before digital, and he did something wrong, or God didn't want any pictures, I don't know. There was one picture my aunt took of my grandmother, and I think there was a picture of my wife, my fiance, using a Polaroid, and it was just a kind of a grainy picture, no real good, you might say, background or anything like that. When we got to the reception hall, which was a place that I hated, I mean, I wasn't happy about anything, you might say, and frankly, I was just ready to get this whole thing over with. That's how much I really saw in the day. But that's a large part of this is due to my depression. And if they're right, I don't make enough serotonin, so I don't get excited. I mean, it's really hard for me to get excited. I can remember the guy telling me how I had to button my jacket and all that stuff before we walked in, and I didn't like that at all. And once we got in there, it was like we were on, well, we were on a time schedule, and they had everything planned. Now it's time for this, now it's time for that, now it's this, now it's that, and, you know, first dance, and we're out of there. And the whole time, I didn't even like the food. They got better. The place is much better nowadays, in all areas. I mean, they just learned how to be more, yeah, I can't think of the right word, but in other words, they're doing more the way you want it rather than the way they have it all planned, you know. So it's more of your day. Unfortunately, that wasn't the way it worked for my day. So we get, you know, we finally get that wrapped up and go to my house and our duplex, which is another area of contention, not with her, but with my family, that came about later on because my brother and sister-in-law moved into the other side. But anyway, we had a few guests stop in who didn't show up at the wedding, and that was alright to me. But I realized that there was nothing to do in this house because our antenna wasn't up. And so we went to bed that night. Oh, of course, we couldn't afford a honeymoon. And I guess, I don't know how I'm going to finish this. Well, we're going to talk about the two things. Well, I'll talk about the next day after we get up, how things went that day. No, I'm going to talk about the next day. So the next day I get up, I guess it's Sunday. We have started going to church where we have been going to church where we got married, but that's starting to unravel. And, but we don't go to church that day. Of course, they expected us there, because that's what you're supposed to do. And, maybe we did go. I don't remember. So, yes, we did. We actually went to church the next day. And of course, everybody's looking at us because you can figure we were banging the hell out of each other the night before. So anyway, there's a story with that, but I'm not sharing it. All I can say is I really was, I didn't do things right. There was not the right emotions there. So anyway, we are sitting around, and I realized, man, there ain't nothing to do. Our antenna's not up. For whatever reason, my parents' house, they didn't supply an antenna. Now they do, but they didn't then. And so we had to put one up. We had one, and we had a 40-foot pipe that had to be pulled up into place with the antenna already mounted to the top, because you couldn't reach it once you got it up there. It's raining outside. I'm bored shitless. I call my brother and my father up, and they actually come up there and help me put that thing up. Now, I'm on a second-story steep metal roof. I could have slid off easily with all the rain. We broke the pole in half one time because it's actually two 20-foot pieces put together. It was a disaster, but that's how bored I was. And I hate to say this, but I actually thought before I started putting the antenna up, while I was sitting there on our used couch, what the hell did I do? I wasn't sure that this was the right thing to do, to get married. Honestly. Now, as time went on, that changed, and I really wanted the marriage to work, but I can't say that I had this desire like I thought it should be, or like maybe what I see on TV or something like that. It was really strange that I didn't have the emotions that should have gone along with it. And in fact, there again, something's wrong with me mentally, because I don't get excited. At least not when you would think I should. I have at times, but I'm not sure why. Now, you can also remember now, I have quit drinking. So, the world is a little different when you're not drinking. And since I wasn't a very social person, that made things even worse. Alright, well, next time don't know where I'll go exactly. I will say that at some point I'm going to start a separate video about my friends. Any, you might say, acquaintance that I had that that somehow had an effect on me. Positive, actually, believe it or not. I'm not gonna, well, I honestly can't think of people that, long term had a negative effect on me, except my first girlfriend. She didn't help things. You'll have to go back on that one. I ain't gonna bring it back up. Alright, well, till the next installment, see ya.